Bought this Pajett Red 1994 20 SEL Mercedes, approximately 145,000 miles on a popular auction site. Hold on, sorry. A couple weeks ago, and it was not as advertised. It is not as advertised, and so at this time I'm trying to figure out if it's got enough going for it to warrant trying to negotiate something with the seller to bring the price down, get some money back, or just whatever, take it, send the car back, give them money back. So claims that were made in the approximate descending order of importance, which were either wrong or I haven't received documentation of yet, are that all the body panels matched. I think that's pretty clear. That is not in fact the case. The pictures on the site for the listing didn't make it look as bad. I don't know if that was intentional or not. But to questions I made directly to the seller, and also to questions posted on the site, most importantly, because it gives me a record, seller stated that panels all match. When in fact, this car appears to have been, it's kind of hard to determine exactly what the hell went on. It's been repainted entirely, except for a few places on the pillars where it wasn't, and the clear coat is completely worn through. Pretty obvious the doors are not the same color as the fenders. There are other subtle differences in all the panels, and some of these things are not actionable. In other words, they're not, no claims were made and that are contradicted by the condition. And you expect to see cars often this age repainted, which isn't a problem, but it wasn't done very well. More obviously on the other side, but there's just big runs. And I've done as much as I can to give this thing a chance. I cleaned it up really well. I fixed the other issue, second down in importance, is that the seller claimed that there was a complete service of the timing chain tensioner guides. Have yet to receive documentation of that. If I don't, that will be pretty much the end of this trip with the Pajett Red Mercedes. But if I do, some of the couple of the other issues were that the left channel of the stereo didn't work when I got it, which was annoying for somebody that didn't have a spare amp, which it was a bad amp lying around, and knowledge of how to get the back seat of the car out, which is where the amps are located. Probably would have cost them $500 or $600 to repair for me. That was, I had the amp in a parts car, so not a big deal, but annoying. It was the driver's side, so really hard to imagine how anybody driving the car, which I believe the seller did for about 2 years, even though he said he was selling it for another person. You catch this car at certain angles and it looks really good, as long as you don't see the two panels together, the doors on the side. And the problem is, it looks better. I mean, it looks worse when it's shiny. It really, because it seems like these doors, when it was painted, they used a lot of clear. And as you get closer, one of the other issues, I don't know how much this is going to show up. I've got pictures of it, obviously. But seller referred to this as a repair because it was hard to see it in the pictures. Once again, it is hard to take pictures of it, so it might not have been intentional. But it is, in fact, very obviously, I mean, to anybody that's seen a car, I would think that it's a huge patch of rust that needs to be fixed by cutting out that section of metal and patching in a new piece, which I'm getting a quote on. I'm getting a quote on a partial repaint. I did a full day of work on this car. Once again, circling back to trying to give it a chance. I do like it. It's mechanically solid. It's exactly what I wanted in a certain way, in that it's not as collectible as this silver car that I'm going to be selling. So I can make some little tweaks to it. Put slightly different wheels on. Just little stuff. Whereas the other car's kind of a museum piece, and it'd be a little sacrilegious to start screwing with it. But problem is, I get into this, and we went through it pretty thoroughly. Myself and the manager of the body shop, looking for stuff, but it had a layer of dust on it, so some of these things weren't as obvious, but there's just clear issues all over the car that they, unlike some body shops, are willing to work with me on, but you see it on the track. They had said they could just patch this up or just spray some clear over that. But it just gets to the point, there's so many little dings. I'm not saying it's a complete no, but then discovered this yesterday. Huge patch clear. This side isn't so bad. Shine these up. These actually came back well. The anodized trim looks a little bad, but that could potentially be remedied. This looks pretty good, relatively speaking. The bumper's not so bad, considering these all look kind of aged, around this age. I don't know if this is apparent. Big drips there, and another big drip there. Clear is completely burned off of this area. It's in a shadow, so it's probably not that obvious. And I threw as thick a coat of that wax as I could on there yesterday, which hides it, but it's just going to keep coming back. I'm not trying to make this extremely viewable content. Little dings all over the place. There's a weird ripple effect that may or may not be obvious. It's just starting to kind of look like, things like the little bit of rust on the bumper I can deal with. That could be replaced. That piece could be replaced at some point if I ever felt inclined, if I kept it that long. The little dings, not a big deal. But the difference in the panels, I just can't live with this. This actually is not as bad as it looks sometimes. If you get the light at certain angles, it just looks like a completely different color. Even in black and white, you'd be able to see the difference just because it's a darker shade. And what else? The wheels are nice. Somebody obviously either replaced them or refinished them at some point. There's no way they'd look this good considering how many times this car has been painted. We found evidence of one fender having been patched well at some point in the past. Oh, look at this. I don't know if I can see it. Yeah, it was just crappy work. It was just the paint itself looks like it's okay paint quality, the materials, and this I'm sure is not going to show up, but there's just fish eyes all over the place. I think it's the correct term, where the surface isn't prepped correctly. Once again, a lot of this stuff isn't, the seller did not represent that this wasn't repainted or that it had a great paint job. He did represent that the panels matched, that this was a repair. It is not, it's rust. That everything worked. It did not. The stereo, compared to this other stuff, it was an annoyance. And Anyway, just want a record of this. Could be a good looking car. I just don't know if it's worth it. It's not an embarrassment to drive now. Mechanically, it's nice, but it is 145,000 miles, and it's not exceptional. I mean, with what I paid for this and an actual full paint job, you'd be looking at the cost of a nice lower mileage car with original paint in good shape. So, I don't know if you can see the ripples in that, but just weird stuff. Kind of hard to figure out what's going on. But that's all.